Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Dillard again. I'm here with my narrative speech today, and here is my audience of one. This is John Williams. He works with me at the fire department, and the reason why I only have one person is because we are on a training assignment in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So we're the only two available. Sorry about that. I do apologize about that, but I promise you I'll make it up to you as well. My narrative speech today is a true story. This story happened in around October 2012, and it happened to myself. And actually, it means a very lot to me. See, I was at a training exercise to be a fire chaplain, and I was at the state fire school. And this was on a Saturday evening around 5 o'clock when I got out, and I was really pressed. I needed to get home. I needed to prepare a sermon for church the next morning, and so I was in a big hurry. So instead of going back through Nashville, coming from Bell Buckle, I decided I'm going to go through another way that I know, that I bypassed Nashville. So I turned right out of the State Fire School instead of going left as normal. And I got on down the road, and when I got there, I started the GPS. And I did wait a little while because I didn't want it to keep telling me I needed to turn around or take an alternate route. I pretty much knew where I was going. And so as I went on for a while, I finally started the GPS and I started following the directions. And I thought for sure I knew where I was going and that I was on my way home. After about 2 hours, as I was driving through following the directions, I felt, I ought to be seeing things now. I ought to be seeing things that I recognize. It looks familiar to me. And as I went along, I began to notice things weren't familiar. They were actually very unfamiliar. And so I stopped. And when I stopped, I cleared out the GPS. And as I sat there, I began to wonder, just where am I? Surely the GPS wouldn't lead me astray. Surely I must be getting close to home. Well, I sat there and I cleared it out and I manually punched in my address for my home, and it directed me to take Highway 412. And as soon as I got to Highway 412, I saw a sign that looked very familiar to me. It said Clifton, Tennessee. I said, how in the world did I get to Clifton, Tennessee on my way back to Milan? Well, I got on this Highway 412, and that number sounds familiar to me because, Highway 412 does run through our county. So as I began going on Highway 412, and it was hilly, I would go up hills and I would have to turn real sharp back to the left or back to the right. And by this time, I've got this tremendous headache because of all the pressure. And I'm thinking, Lord, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there. So a trip that normally takes me 2.5 to 3 hours actually ended up taking me about 4.5. I did finally make it home. And as I sat there, and I began to wonder, what was the purpose of this trip? And I began to pray over this. And as I began to pray, God started revealing things to me. He said, Stephen, many people today are just like you are. Today, you were so sure when you left the fire academy that you knew where you were going. Matter of fact, you didn't even think to even start the GPS, the global positioning system. Many of us today, we won't even think to open up God's Word, God's global positioning system, our roadmap for our future. We know for certain where we are going. We know for certain that we're on the right path. Many of us travel down that road. Just like I traveled 2 hours, many of us would travel years thinking we know the best plan for our life. But many of us will come to that point, just like I did that night, that we finally stop and we finally ask ourselves, do I really know where I am? See, had I not stopped that night, and reprogram my global positioning system. Many of us, had I not stopped in my own life at some point in time and opened up God's Word, God's plan for my life, I too would still be lost. Many thinking that they're still on the right path. Many thinking that they still know the best way to get home. What I learned that night was a very valuable lesson. If we'll just stop and ask God what His plan is, ask God for His directions for our life, He will lead us home. Thank you very much.